May 15, 2025, Manhattan Federal Court. The room falls dead silent as a grainy hotel hallway video flickers to life. In it, Sean Diddy Combs yanks Cassie Ventura backward by the hair and kicks her against a wall. Seconds later, right there in court, the hip-hop icon's face drains of color. He stammers for the exit, and security has to drag him back to his seat. One 4-minute clip just cracked a billion-dollar empire wide open. That desperate dash wasn't just a meltdown. It was the moment power lost its armor. For years, whispers about private freak-offs, hidden cameras, and psychological control swirled around Diddy's mansion gates. Today, the evidence is finally spilling into daylight, and the fallout is spreading far beyond one man's reputation. How did a single surveillance camera topple a king? And what other secrets are still waiting to surface? Stay with me.
The tension inside Manhattan's federal courthouse on May 15, 2025 was already thick after 7 days of testimony. But everything froze the instant prosecutors queued up an unfamiliar surveillance file. The screen showed a 6th-floor hallway of the InterContinental Hotel. Cassie Ventura burst out of an elevator, phone clutched in her hand, terror in her eyes. A heartbeat later, Sean Diddy Combs lunged into view, seized her by the hair, and drove his knee into her side. For 4 unbroken minutes, the jury watched kicks, shoves, and a vase shattering against plaster, violence so graphic a marshal had to hand tissues down the front row. Combs, who had spent the morning whispering calmly with counsel, went sheet white. He rose, stammering that he needed air, then pivoted toward the exit. 2 court officers intercepted him, gripping each elbow, while Judge Emily Hughes ordered him back to the defense table. Spectators gasped, reporters scrambled for phones, and one juror openly wept. Outside the courtroom, headlines detonated within minutes. Combs panics as hidden tape rolls. Music empire crumbles in 4-minute clip. Yet inside, the legal weight of what the jury had just seen eclipsed the spectacle. Unlike witness memories, the video was a silent, objective narrator. Prosecutor Angela Kwan leaned on that certainty, reminding the panel that physical evidence requires no belief, only eyesight. Her point landed. No amount of celebrity spin could re-edit a hotel security feed. Equally startling was the mystery of the tape's survival. For 8 years, it had never surfaced. No leaks, no subpoenas, no tabloid whispers. Defense attorneys whispered furiously among themselves. Their entire strategy of mutual volatility between Combs and Ventura had just been wrecked in high-definition silence. A Reuters sidebar later revealed why they seemed blindsided. Combs had allegedly offered a $100,000 cash bribe to the night shift guard who first retrieved the file, hoping it would vanish forever. The gambit failed, and now those unblinking pixels were dismantling a billion-dollar brand in real time. As court adjourned for lunch, observers realized they had witnessed more than a meltdown. They had seen power lose its camouflage. One small, forgotten camera had overpowered decades of polished interviews, red carpet poses, and platinum records. But the footage was only the opening blow. How did it escape the shredder? And who risked everything to keep a copy alive? Because the hallway tape didn't surface by accident, it surfaced because a reluctant insider finally spoke up, and his testimony would tear the case wide open.
Long before the jury saw it, that 4-minute hallway clip was an endangered species. According to security officer Israel Flores, now an LAPD patrolman, Combs cornered him in a service alcove the morning after the assault, peeled off what looked like 100 crisp $1,000 bills, and muttered, "Make the tape disappear." Flores says he refused.
quietly copied the file to a backup drive and later handed that drive to prosecutors when the investigation finally reached him in 2024. Combs's legal team had banked on the bribe working. They walked into court this spring insisting Cassie exaggerated a lover's spat. Then, forensic analyst Frank Piazza took the stand. Pixel by pixel, he showed why the InterContinental camera's frame rate glitches, time code sequence, and metadata hashes prove the video is intact and unedited. No deepfake, no splice. Just raw footage of a man kicking a woman who's trying to crawl away. That technical certainty blew up the defense's narrative. Testimony can be impeached, memories can blur, but a surveillance feed is a silent witness that never changes its story. Prosecutor Angela Kwan hammered the point. You don't have to believe Cassie. You only have to believe your eyes. The jurors did. Several leaned forward, knuckles white, as the analyst replayed the kick in slow motion. Even more damning, investigators say the file survived only because it sat on a maintenance server the hotel cycled out each quarter. When IT staff wiped the main drives, that hidden partition, labeled ArcCam 6, remained. It was Flores's off-the-books curiosity that uncovered it 8 years later, a twist of fate prosecutors now call the most expensive oversight in music history. The fallout was immediate. Shareholders dumped revolt stock, sponsors froze brand deals, and studios distance-called their lawyers. Yet inside the courtroom, the real damage was simpler. The tape demolished any claim that Cassie's fear was manufactured. And as the jury grappled with that reality, one question started echoing through the press gallery. If Combs couldn't hide this video, what other evidence might still be lurking in vaults and hard drives? The answer began to surface the very next day, when the same witness who saved the hallway footage pulled back the curtain on a secret world of one-way mirrors, freak-off scripts, and rooms wired like film sets.
Israel Flores never set out to become the star witness who could topple a mogul. In 2016, he was a $10 an hour night shift guard at LA's InterContinental Hotel. Today, he wears an LAPD badge. But it was the choice he made in the 12 hours after Cassie's elevator sprint that rewired the entire case. Flores told jurors he'd been summoned to the 6th floor for a woman in distress. He found Cassie shaking by the lifts, while Sean Combs, wrapped only in a towel and socks, blocked her path with what Flores called a devilish stare. Broken vase shards glittered on the carpet. Flores wedged himself between them, escorted Cassie back to her suite, and radioed for backup. Minutes later, he said Combs approached him in a service corridor, peeled off a wad of $100 bills, roughly $100K, and murmured 3 words: "Don't tell nobody." Flores recognized the gesture for what it was: hush money. Instead, he quietly copied the hallway footage onto a spare drive before the hotel's main servers rotated their files. 8 years passed, the drive gathered dust in a desk drawer, and Flores moved on to police work until federal agents traced the long-rumored video back to him in 2024. On the stand, the defense pounced. Why hadn't he reported the bribe? Why didn't his original incident log mention Cassie's bruised face? Wasn't he the same guy who filmed his shiny dress shoes on TikTok during that shift? Flores didn't flinch. He said, "I wrote what I saw. The shoe video doesn't change what's in that hallway tape." He reminded jurors that perfection isn't a prerequisite for truth. Prosecutors leaned into that ordinariness. Flores wasn't an activist, a rival, or a scorned employee, just a bystander who happened to guard the wrong corridor on the wrong night. In forensic psychology, they noted, such credible incidental witnesses often sway juries precisely because they never sought the spotlight. His impact is measurable. Without Flores's backup copy, the hotel's maintenance purge would have wiped the only unedited record of the assault.
The grand jury might never have greenlit racketeering charges, and Combs might still be curating his legend instead of fighting for his freedom. A single act of quiet defiance cracked open a vault of secrets, proving that even billion-dollar reputations can shatter when one ordinary employee refuses to press delete. And the chain reaction had only begun. Flores's revelation led agents straight to another cache. Rooms wired like movie sets, hard drives labeled by date, and scripts for events insiders called freak-offs. That discovery would turn a hallway beating into a potential federal trafficking case.
If the hallway footage proved Diddy's capacity for violence, Cassie Ventura's next revelation exposed the scale and choreography of that violence behind closed doors. Speaking in a steady, almost clinical tone, she described dark rooms hidden inside Combs's mansions in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. These weren't spare bedrooms, they were purpose-built sets. Blackout drapes, single overhead spotlights, mirrored walls that looked ordinary until you realized they were one-way glass, and cameras nestled in clock faces or smoke detectors. According to Cassie, each space had a control panel linked to a server rack elsewhere in the house, allowing Diddy to watch or replay everything in real time. The events themselves followed a script insiders called a freak-off. Step 1, Cassie had to narrate what was happening, as if voicing an adult film. Step 2, the body shine, where baby oil was applied to every inch of skin so lights bounced dramatically off flesh. Steps 3 and 4 spiraled into degradation, sometimes consensual, often not, with hired male escorts chosen by Combs. Cassie said she didn't even know she was being recorded at first. She discovered the truth only after stumbling onto a monitor in Diddy's private office, looping footage of her own humiliation. I stopped feeling like a person. I felt like a prop in someone else's movie. When federal agents raided Combs's properties in March 2024, that description snapped into focus. They seized over 1,000 bottles of identical baby oil, detailed cue cards outlining positions and dialogue, and hard drives meticulously labeled by date and scene. Prosecutors argue the cataloging alone turns a private fetish into evidence of organized exploitation, a potential federal trafficking charge that carries decades, not years, in prison. Combs's lawyers insist everything was consensual role-play, kept under tight lock and key. Yet Cassie's testimony about threats, "If you leave, I'll leak the tapes and ruin you," casts those locks in a far darker light. The very archives meant to control her now threatened to imprison him. And the shock waves kept spreading. As the FBI combed through terabytes of footage, more voices began to surface. Strangers who claimed the same script, the same cameras, the same threats. Their accounts would widen the case from one alleged victim to a pattern stretching back decades.
Just 2 days after Cassie's darkroom testimony, another voice cracked over the courtroom microphone, this time an Austrian TV journalist who had stayed silent for a quarter-century. Cassie Steininger removed her anonymity to allege that during Diddy's 2000 European tour, he spiked her drink with GHB, raped her on a tour bus bunk, and threatened to erase her career if she spoke. The claim falls outside the U.S. statute of limitations, but prosecutors allowed her statement to establish motive and pattern. Hours later, the jury heard from Brianna Bongolan, a graphic designer who says Combs dangled her over a 17-story balcony in 2016 after she tried to stop one of his infamous freak-off parties. Photos of her bruised collarbone and a neck brace flashed on the court monitors. Jurors flinched as she described nightly doses of MDMA she says Combs forced on her and Cassie. By week 4, the witness list read like a grim mosaic.
a former personal assistant called Mia, detailing years of coerced sex acts, a male escort who testified he was paid to sleep with Cassie while Combs filmed, and a stylist who claimed Combs kept a pharmacy of ketamine, OD antidotes, and baby oil cases in every residence. Legal analysts say the overlapping stories, balcony threats, drugging, hidden cameras, create what's known as a signature crime profile, distinct details repeating across time, place, and victim. Defense attorneys insist these are embellished tales from opportunists, but the chorus keeps growing. Court filings show at least 7 sealed Jane Doe complaints waiting in the wings, while social media sleuths track down old tour staffers who hint at similar experiences. Reports claim the FBI has opened a parallel investigation into whether any recordings crossed state or national lines, a move that could transform the case into a full-blown trafficking indictment. What rattles the music world most isn't any single assault. It's the alleged system. Drugs to numb, cameras to record, NDAs to silence, hush money when all else failed. Each new accuser slots another piece into that jigsaw, tightening the picture of a decades-long machinery running on fear. And that raises an even uglier question. How did so many insiders, managers, label execs, A-list collaborators stand by as the rumors piled up? The next section dives into the economics of silence and why an entire industry may now be scrambling for cover. Money, fame, and a rotating cast of gatekeepers formed the moat around Diddy's world, and for years it worked. Contracts came with invisible ink, non-disclosure clauses, photo ban riders, and friendship settlements that look more like hush payments. Former assistant Tanea Wallace told The Washington Post she signed 3 separate NDAs before she ever set foot in a studio. That paper was thicker than the music brief, she said, adding that violators faced million-dollar penalties. The practice, the Post notes, is hardly unique. The industry used identical paperwork to muffle accusations against R. Kelly and other power brokers. The payoff economy ran parallel. Prosecutors produced one canceled cashier's check for $30,000, addressed to a stylist who'd photographed Cassie's bruises in 2018, cashed the next day, and never spoke again. Security guard Israel Flores says Diddy swung far higher, a crisp $100K tip to Deep Six the hotel video, an offer that might have succeeded if Flores hadn't stashed a backup copy. Why didn't more insiders sound alarms? Clarissa Vu testified that junior staffers often weigh whistleblowing against career oblivion. She explained, lose a paycheck, lose your connections, maybe get blackballed forever. That calculus, combined with dread of internet pylons, keeps lips sealed and cameras off. Brianna Bangalona's balcony nightmare shows the cost of breaking rank. She says the threat, "I'm the devil, no one will believe you," still rings in her ears, and she wakes from night terrors clutching the edge of her bed. Yet the silence was never absolute, only dispersed. Separate crews knew separate fragments, a bodyguard aware of the balcony, a house manager tasked with ordering baby oil cases, a tour medic restocking ketamine. None had the full puzzle until Cassie's testimony and the FBI raids knitted the pieces together. Power's greatest trick, a sociologist told jurors, is compartmentalization. Scatter secrets so no one person feels sure enough or safe enough to speak. But the moat is draining fast. Labels are lawyering up. Former collaborators scrub joint photos from feeds, and insiders whisper about other hard drives, other NDAs, other names. The question hanging over every conference room on Music Row is no longer if someone knew, but how many chose to look away, and what it will cost them now that the walls are falling. Because once the hush money dries up and the contracts expire, only the footage remains, and cameras, unlike people, never forget.
The fallout from Diddy's trial is rippling far beyond one defendant's fate, forcing an industry-wide audit of the unwritten rules that long protected its stars.
In Los Angeles, federal agents have reportedly impaneled a grand jury to examine whether any of Diddy's managers, label attorneys, or security contractors knowingly facilitated the freak-off system, an inquiry that could convert bystanders into co-conspirators overnight. Insiders whisper that subpoenas have already landed on desks at 2 major record companies, demanding emails, payment ledgers, and tour security logs dating back to 2003. Brands are scrambling too. A leading sports drink sponsor froze a multi-million-dollar endorsement clause within 24 hours of the hallway video's release, citing a morals provision once considered boilerplate. Streaming platforms that build glossy documentaries around hip-hop royalty now face petitions to add content warning slates or pull the titles entirely. Even the Grammys, an institution famous for weathering scandal, convened an emergency ethics panel to draft stricter performer vetting guidelines before next year's show. Meanwhile, the hashtag #MeToo drumbeat has surged back into the hip-hop timeline. Unverified Reddit threads map alleged dark rooms in other celebrity mansions. TikTokers stitch together tour bus anecdotes, asking viewers to spot the pattern. And veteran session musicians hint that the silence around abusive power dynamics is wider than one headline case. Rumors suggest at least 3 high-profile artists have quietly hired crisis management firms in anticipation of their own NDAs surfacing. For the first time, label lawyers talk openly about mandating independent compliance officers, people whose job is to monitor tours like corporate auditors, not hype men. Activist groups are pushing for California's legislature to extend film set intimacy coordinator rules to music video shoots, while a bipartisan bill circulating in Congress would let federal prosecutors bypass state statutes of limitation when hidden recordings cross state lines. Whether all these proposals stick is uncertain, but the immediate shift is unmistakable. The old economy of secrecy and star power is wobbling, and those who once relied on proximity to fame are weighing the cost of loyalty against the risk of indictment. When courtroom lights flipped on a single grainy hallway, they illuminated an entire ecosystem, revealing how easily talent, money, and dread can bind people to silence. The question now isn't just how Sean Combs will answer for the evidence against him, but how an entire industry will answer for allowing the evidence to pile up in the first place. 4+ minutes of hallway footage ripped away decades of curated myth, opening a breach no attorney, publicist, or platinum record could seal. Once that grainy clip surfaced, every brick of the empire, hidden tapes, NDAs, hush money, and the industry's studied silence became part of the rubble. Israel Flores's thumb drive, Cassie Ventura's calm testimony, and a chorus of new accusers merged into a tripod the defense could not topple. An unblinking camera, a reluctant witness, and survivors who refused to stay quiet. Their stories reframed Diddy's empire not as a monument to talent, but as a stage set built on compartmentalized fear. Yet the trial's real legacy may lie outside the courtroom. Labels are rewriting contracts, brands are scrubbing sponsorship decks, and lawmakers are eyeing loopholes that once hid behind velvet ropes. A cultural logic, power by silence, has been exposed as brittle once technology captures truth. If one overlooked security camera can dismantle a billion-dollar persona, how many locked drives or forgotten backup servers are out there ticking away under other mansions? And when the next clip surfaces, will the audience still be shocked or newly prepared to believe the people who have been whispering all along? The camera defeated the king, but it also flashed a warning light across an industry that profits from charisma while ignoring its casualties. Now every gatekeeper must decide, keep guarding the secrets or open the doors before another hidden lens does it for them.